Welcome everybody to The Love of Cars presented by Hagerty. I'm Justin Bell. Here's Tommy Kendall. And we are of the talk show, as you know. And I gotta say, what a week it's been. What a week of great feedback from everybody, because this is episode 3 of Love of Cars. And I feel pretty lucky to be here.
Well, it's funny because coming into this, obviously, we love stories. That's what drove the talk show at the IMSA races. Is what led to this. And I knew there was a lot of stories to be told here. But now that we're really spending a lot of time thinking about this exact theme, this point of view, I mean, it's endless. And today's guests are represented of that with C.J. Wilson, major league pitcher, now big time into the car, both retail and race business. Emma Bengtsson, another Michelin star.
Very nice. He's French, just every time gets me. He never had any luck with the girls using a French accent, did you?
Should I tell you the story
Michelin?
about?
No, you shouldn't tell me that
I
story.
shouldn't. I embarrassed myself in front of Brigitte Bardot with my French on my honeymoon. Yeah.
Well, I'm always accused of whichever country I'm in, I try and do the accent, even though I can't speak the language, so it doesn't really go down that well. But talking about things that will, our third guest of the evening is Donald Osborne, who is just one of those characters that epitomizes the style, the taste, the panache of the collector car world. So I'm really excited to have him on the show. But as we have pointed out, we have this wonderful concept for a show. And as we said in the press release, it's going to be magnificent cars and spectacular people, or the other way around. And as you've seen, we've had some spectacular people, but
light on cars.
Light on cars. That's, to be honest, we are light on cars, which is not our fault. One of the beautiful things about being, between us, how many championships do we have? I think we have like 10 championships. I actually only have one, but I feel...
So we do have 10.
Yeah, we have 10 championships. I'm only contributing one of those, but we have... when Helio Castroneves come on, what did we say to him? Between us, we had, like...
3 Indy 500s.
Victories. Yeah.
True story.
Yeah.
True story.
We didn't contribute heavily to that one. But we obviously cannot get out there and drive too much at the moment, although we're hoping to any moment. And the reason I bring up about what we do as drivers is people will let us drive their cars. We're not sure quite why sometimes, but they're very generous, whether it's the manufacturers or collectors or people who have just bought the latest and greatest road car.
Everyone except my dad.
Your dad would never let you drive cars?
I understood it when I was 16. I don't quite understand it today.
No, you proved yourself.
Sorry, Dad.
Proved yourself, sonny boy. But we thought we should show you some cars, and as of next week, we will be doing a little camera whip around. We're going to focus on one of the beautiful cars here at Fusion Motor Company and give you a little insight. We have Ford GTs. We have P1s over there. We have Bugatti. We have so many cars. But these, I just wanted to show you right behind us. That's a 1983 Ferrari 512 BBI, and I got to tell you, TK, that would be on my drive home steal gone in 60 seconds list if I could. And next to it, that actual Plymouth Barracuda, that isn't your grandpa's Barracuda. I think we got told, didn't they put an LS2 engine in it or something silly?
Silly. I don't actually, I wasn't here when we got the details on that.
I think it's got like
one.
750 horsepower, so it is definitely a monster.
So we're basically, a long way of saying, we are going to be doing a spotlight every week, walk around sort of to, whet the appetite. So because the clouds are starting to part. Mm-hmm. First big sporting event happened in Florida with the UFC event. NASCAR right behind this Sunday at Darlington. They're going to be racing. We're hoping IMSA back on track. So the clouds are parting. I know some people may get out and driving. That is, as long as you're doing it by yourself, that's safe.
Have you noticed how they hide the keys from us?
I've noticed that.
I have noticed that. It's a very depressing moment. But talking about a man who has the keys to more than just cars, C.J. Wilson, just a spectacular human being, because I don't follow baseball. But when this articulate, interesting, energetic, focused, handsome, fit, strong, dedicated race driver turned up, I wasn't surprised to hear that he was one of the top pitchers in the league. So we're just really excited. Just take a little look. This is a video that Porsche produced just at the beginning of 2017. So full credit to Porsche for this. But it really sums up his personality, and I think is a nice segue into the interview.
Cars and racing have always been on my mind since I was a little kid. I remember thinking, what's it like to hear the engine, to feel it go around the corners, to slide your hand down the hip of the car and feel the curve. Thinking about what it's like to be a race car driver, that's all I could ever think about. I feel like Porsche was a brand I could personally relate to because their success on the track was very similar to my success on the field. It was about intelligence, engineering, effort placed in the right areas. I wasn't the biggest guy. I didn't have the most horsepower. I couldn't throw the hardest. But I could see things. I could find ways to win. I could strategize. I could outwit them. And I always felt like if I was in better shape, at the end of the season, I was going to be a better player than the guys on the field around me. The same way that a Porsche is always the car to win a 24-hour race. They're always there till the end. They always last. I think for a lot of people, just getting to a certain level is important. They just want to turn a lap. They just want to throw one pitch. But I never understood that. It never made any sense to me. You have to have a dream in order to make any progress, otherwise you're just on a treadmill your whole life. The ultimate goal of any endurance racer is to go to France and win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Why would my goal be any different? My name is CJ Wilson. For the past 16 years, I've been a pro baseball player. But my whole life, I've wanted to do something completely different.
Wow. CJ, welcome. Do you like that?
Dang. I'm going to have to put the sunglasses on. That was pretty chill right there.
Well, I guess the natural segue is that was 3 years ago. Update us on the Le Mans dream. I know it's taken a little bit of a detour, but I know it's still the end goal, I believe. Update us on the Le Mans goal.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the thing is when you have such an ambitious goal, you have to work your way up to it piece by piece, right? And for me, I think the big transition has been from owning the race team and racing in, starting in Mazdas and ST and then MX-5 Cup and all that stuff, and kind of working our way up, getting an education in the IMSA side of it and what's actually the moving pieces going into a successful team and how to identify that. And then now it's basically just, me getting up to speed. So the only focus now is just testing and getting behind the wheel and getting more familiar, because I feel like from a conceptual standpoint and the rules and all that stuff, I think I'm ready to go. It's just more about, can I execute when it's raining at night, in a much more special car than I've ever driven. I can't say more than I've ever driven, because I have driven kind of the ultimate car, but for running an LMP2 car or GTE car, I still haven't driven any of those yet, so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
You hinted at the ultimate car. You drove the 919. What was that like? I mean, you had a picture going in. It had to have probably exceeded what you could have even imagined.
Yeah, because, it's like the dream, right? The dream is, and you guys understand because you both raced top-level cars at the top level. So it's like, when you see all these vintage events, right? And these vintage events, guys will drive some of the cars that were raced in the 60s and the 80s or whatever. They'll drive like a Ford GT or a 906 or something. And at the time, that was the best car. It's a completely different situation when you have the car that raced at Le Mans last year and then you're driving it on a test day. Especially the 919, which is probably the most developed car. Maybe the most developed race car ever.
Probably. Where were you? Where did you do it?
At a track called Aragon in Spain.
Okay.
Oops, there we go. Sorry.
That was Porsche now. That was Porsche saying, don't disclose any of the stuff.
Don't talk about, yeah, exactly. But the thing is that they, what I would say is they prepped us a lot. I mean, I had done a lot of shifter karts and I'd done some LMP3, so I sort of understood the general dynamics and the reaction time that the car was going to have. But what was really amazing is everything worked so easily that you understood why the car was successful, because you're driving on the straight, and when you drive in a GT car, even if it's like a GT4 or something like that, they're going to be a little bit bumpy and things. But the ride quality was so high, and they have Mark Webber there. And I'm like, hey, Mark, why is this thing so good? Like, he's like, well, I mean, come on, mate. They spent a fair bit of cash on it,
Yeah.
got the shocks working and they got the Michelins. So it just really was incredible. It blew me away. But the G-forces and putting your body through that and then challenging yourself to do it in a way that that if you do anything wrong in the car, that there's probably a good chance you don't make it on your return flight, right?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest fear, I guess, is crashing Porsche's $20 million race car.
I mean, the drivers who are in it, they have that same fear when they were running in it, but they also had the pressure of competition. So the
bigger fear was losing your job.
Bigger fear for not being fast. I was going to ask you, because obviously I am a Neanderthal when it comes to the sport you made your name in, but I can only imagine that the focus that CJ Wilson we know today has was the same as a young kid. I mean, did your dad have to slap you to get out of bed sometimes? Were you like a normal kid, or were you a machine that just knew what he wanted? You told me once that you just identified things very early on and focused. Was that your DNA?
Yeah, I would say that I didn't have any particular skill out of the gate that was like, oh, I'm going to be a star athlete or whatever, just based on the fact that I was bigger than anybody else, because I wasn't. I was a normal sized kid, a little undersized maybe. I was an intelligent kid. I had a good memory. I could learn things really quickly, but it was more about the fact that I knew exactly what I wanted. When you sit around with your friends and you're like, hey, what do you want for lunch? I know I want a barbecue chicken sandwich. That's it. That's what it is. And that I've always been decisive. And I think that helped me a lot. But once you hook your dream, or hook your goal mentally, and you say, okay, I want to make it to the major leagues, or I want to have this cool car collection, or, I want to marry a supermodel, or I want to be on TV as an actor, whatever your goal could be, right? Everybody has goals for different reasons, but the reason isn't always as important as the fact that you just don't give up on it. And I think that was, for me, the desire to be a major league all-star was driven in a lot of ways by weird things. I felt like, oh, well, I like the sport of baseball. I think that it's something that anybody at any size can play. It's kind of like golf in that sense, where you don't have to be 6'8", you don't have to be 5'2". It's not like Formula One driving where you see all of them. Most of them are kind of like similar size profile, or basketball. Everyone has to be really tall, right? So I was a regular size guy, and I knew that baseball was probably the best sport for a regular size guy to have a chance at, because they have 25 guys on the team. So you don't have to be Pete Sampras or Agassi or the one guy to be good and get the accolades and get what you want. You just have to be on a good team. You have to be a good team player. And there's various roles. So there's a role for a guy that's slow but hits home runs. There's a role for a guy that's fast but doesn't have power but is great with ground balls. So I just kind of felt like maybe I could fit in there somehow. And growing up in Southern California, you have great weather. You have 330 days maybe of playable outdoor baseball on a yearly basis. So you're able to get those repetitions in, just like somebody that's growing up on a kart track is able to go out there and just drive and drive. I think that's where there's a similarity to baseball and racing, that it's a mental skill that you really can't fabricate without repetitions. And the pressure goes up as you age, and the stakes go up, and that forces you to dig a little bit deeper, I guess, as you're put in more challenging situations and more is asked of you.
Well, the one thing that struck me about you is you had this career, $100 million contract, built this dream house in Bel Air, starting to do racing and so forth. You did a total left turn, sold all of that stuff, moved to Fresno, if I'm not mistaken, because the baseball was just the first act. And so,
but he also, I'd like to say, he did also
marry
the supermodel and then have the car.
I was thinking the same thing.
So I don't know about the movie.
I slid that in there.
Yeah, just stay away from TV for goodness sake. Can you?
Oh, come on, man. Come on.
No. We have
such an unflattering photo.
We have no other bandwidth. We have to stay in our TV world. You stay right where you are.
But love for you is borders into obsession. I mean, you've immersed yourself in the retail part of the car biz, and this is part of how you're going to Le Mans, I think.
That's the goal, really.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's why the corporation's called CJ's Road to Le Mans. So the idea is that through building a successful dealership group. And with the brands that I'm with, Porsche, BMW, and Audi are all great brands. They all race. That's important as well. I felt like having a consolidated location here, it was a great opportunity, frankly, to be stepping into these brands right after baseball. It was an easy decision to retire from baseball because I had a lot of arm surgeries and stuff. Like, this is as far, let's see if I can get this in frame. That's as far as I can bend my elbow.
Wow.
That's it. And that's as straight as it goes.
Okay.
So that's not a very good angle, when you're throwing. That's my throwing arm. So you can see like pretty big scar right here. I had 5 arm surgeries. I was going to keep playing because physically I'm in good shape. I mean, I can go run around and stuff, but as a thrower, if you don't have any elbow cartilage, you're pretty much done. So the desire to race was very high. And the only way I could do that seemingly was to leverage or parlay the baseball stuff. But all that racing stuff started in 2008, while I was still in the middle of my career, the beginning of my career. So that's where I got acclimatized, and that's where I started to meet people and go to events, go to the IMSA races at, Laguna Seca or Daytona or whatever, the Petit Le Mans after the season, based on what the baseball schedule was, or if I was injured and I could actually go to an event.
Now, it isn't just competition, though. You have a deep, deep love for the cars themselves.
Yeah.
How many miles are on your McLaren P1?
13,000?
13,000 miles. So
that's darned abusive in some societies.
He's like a savant. This is unprompted, but you could ask him for driving impressions of all of them and compare him to this. Well, I'm going to give you collectible Porsche, not going to go down in value, $75,000 and under.
And 993 C2S.
Okay,
there you are, done.
Yes. And on that, what do you want and what don't you want? Options or specs?
If you can find one with the hardback sports seats, that's the move.
Okay.
That's the move. If you get one that's got like the hardest color out of the standard colors to get is white. If you can get white with a black interior with no sunroof with hardback seats, that's the best. That's the best of the best. I think so.
See, that's the love of cars.
That is a love, and that's what. When we were talking about, coming on the show, and I said what we were going to talk about is the beauty of this show is people are connected. We have a chef coming on next, Michelin star chef. There is that common thread, that DNA that everyone has who is successful. And I tell my kids, and I'd love to hear what you tell your kids. But if you're passionate about something, you can make up for a lot of talent by that desire. I think that's what you kicked this off with. But when you moved into racing, what are those skills from the baseball world that you brought over? Because reaction times, you live in reaction times are key in your world, but they're different. Explain that. Describe some of the sort of differences and similarities.
The common misconception that a lot of people have about ball and stick sports versus racing, right, is that they assume that racers are these incredible, like, live their life on the edge, what's the word I'm looking for? Daredevil reaction people. But the reality is that the best racers are so far ahead that it's not a reaction thing necessarily, unless they're driving in weird elements like rain or something, or rally maybe. But what I've found is that my reaction time as a baseball player, which has been very good always, and to the point where when I was a fielder, I would catch line drives and stuff that were getting hit back at me that would generally drill people in the body. But the reaction time thing, if you rely on that too much as a driver, then you're costing yourself time, because then you're almost waiting for time to elapse. So you have to really be more ahead of it in anticipation. And so that anticipation, in a way, is more like a soccer player or a football player that's throwing like a leading pass, and because you're sort of leading the car with your eyes and your mind around the corner, and you're setting it up for that kind of cornering effect where you get the suspension to work and the tires to work and all that stuff. Whereas baseball is more just kind of sit in your ready position, and then you just sort of react to the ball as it comes in. So baseball is not the best analogy for a similar sport. It's more, I would say, skiing or something like that, where you're in a more smooth dancing kind of rhythm around the track, if that makes sense. So for me, I played all the sports growing up. I played basketball, football, baseball, soccer, tennis, ping pong, like everything. So my hand-eye coordination is great. But the problem is that when I would get in a car, when I first started racing more full time, and like in GT3 Cup, then I had a problem at letting the car just kind of slip a little bit, because as soon as I could feel something happen, I just I just start to react to it, and I was overreactive, because my reflexes were like, oh, don't crash the car, and that hurt me a lot, in terms of lap time. So I had to get more comfortable with letting the car yaw around a little bit and just hold it and letting the suspension kind of bob and weave, because I didn't trust that at all. I wanted the car to be stuck or unstuck, and then.
So the 919 is your route. I mean, that's what's so funny about the higher up you go, the less, or the more finite the movement is. It's sometimes that people say to me, when you watch the Indy, right, and they're doing their qualifying lap, and you sit there with your beer and your popcorn and your burger, and you go, they're not even really doing anything. I mean, have you seen what they're up against the wall? And I find myself sitting there going, God, look at that car, so easy to drive. What you're saying is that when you watch Lewis drive around on qualifying lap, he is ahead of it by just that nanosecond that you need to be. And my dad, actually, I'd like to hear your thought. My dad has a theory. He's always had it from when he did a demonstration tennis match with Martina Navratilova, and he's talked about it with other athletes over the years. He believes that when you have talent, you have will, you have passion and desire, but if just physiologically you were gifted with the ability for the messages from your eyes to reach your brain by whatever metric measure that is, it's a tinier measurement than I can imagine, a nanosecond.
But if it's 10% quicker,
you would be able to see the ball coming. You'll be able to see the movement. You'll be able to read the information. Maybe that's what separates the Schumacher, the you, because we're in, I'd like to say we're in, especially you, the top 2 or 3% of guys that ever race cars, especially in your field. Was it Vettel-like or was it Raikkonen-like? We don't know because you never were up against them. But you know what I'm saying?
Well, but it's. I used to think about that vision, acuity, how quickly you change focus. I've never looked through anyone else's eyes before, but I'm pretty sure that that was an edge of mine.
Yeah.
And some things you can do by keeping yourself in good shape and doing all this stuff can maybe keep you inside the best part of your range, but that range is kind of set for you. I think that's what you're trying to say.
What do you think, CJ?
I agree. I think that some people are born with what I call like an absolute value in terms of their physical skills, meaning that your height is an absolute value, your nerve conductivity is an absolute value, and if I'm a little glitchy here, I apologize, but the idea in general is that for me personally, I have great vision, and so when I'm driving, I can see the nuances of the little. And I can feel the nuances in my fingertips of the track as it's going away. You have a track like Watkins Glen that can literally be sort of a life or death thing if you're not right on the bump, right? Mm-hmm. So having that type of a track, I think you have those guys, especially like Tommy's saying, that might have a little bit extra vision. Then they might have a little bit less trepidation entering a corner because they know the track better.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So you can pick up the information. The better your vision is, the higher quality the information is coming at you, and then you're able to sort through that information faster, like a faster computer chip.
Yeah, I think so. So obviously we're all on sabbatical, enforced upon us, obviously by the world, that we can't go to these amazing car events. We can't go to racetracks. What have you been doing other than keeping your business, the wheels on the truck, on the business?
That's it.
That's it.
Netflix and working out at home, and then just selling cars and trying to figure out, what the best way is of delivering the ultimate customer experience to people. I think there's a lot of people right now that are getting the sort of Amazonification of their life, and we're seeing the car business adapt to that. So now we're doing completely online ordering, delivering, negotiating, and everything. And obviously everybody's wearing their masks and all that stuff, but the car business is evolving very quickly. In the last, I'd say 6 months, the car business has seen a huge shift from the last 6 years. It's changed a lot in the last 6 months. as a result of that. And there's a lot of vendors out there that are offering cool services, but at the end of the day, how are the dealers going to make the customer feel good? Because they're spending as much money as they possibly can on a car. That's what the car business is all about. You want the coolest car you can get for your budget. That's it. And can we make you feel special during that process? So that's what keeps me up at night. And that being said, I'm all the way through Westworld. I'm all the way through. I haven't seen Narcos yet. That's the next one for me to watch. That's
Narcos.
Last week's show, I recommended everybody rewatch Senna. Now, your wife, not only was she a supermodel, also Brazilian and loves cars. Have you watched Senna recently?
Oh yeah,
recently.
I've seen Senna. I haven't seen it recently because I'm trying not to cry too much during this period of time. It's a very emotional movie for anybody that was aware of racing at the time. I was just a kid when it happened. I was 13, so. That was the equivalent. I try to explain to other people that aren't really racers. I said, just imagine if, you
can recognize that noise. That's a 911 turbo.
There you go. If LeBron went up for a dunk and the basketball hoop fell on him, you know what I mean? Like, that's how big of a shock it was for all of us watching that when it happened. And I think racing has changed a lot for the better since because of all the safety. But my wife and I bonded over that movie when we first started dating, for sure.
What when someone asks you, you've been really fortunate, and I have a feeling that the phases of your life won't just end with the dealerships. You're going to achieve your Le Mans goal, you're going to go on to something else. You're so young, way too young, actually. But you, as I think I said on live TV one time, I said he's handsome and he's way too young and he's here. It's really annoying. But how do you describe the love of cars for you? What if you described it to someone that had never seen them before? How would you describe it?
So let's say, like the TV show Outlander, I got magically transported to 1760 Scotland. I would tell someone that a car is in a lot of ways it's the purest form of art that we have today, because it's something that, due to engineering, we're able to design things that evolve so quickly that they can be arbitrary. If you look at something like a wheel, like a wagon wheel on an old horse cart, there's a functionality to that. But then to see what we've done with wheels now, with the metallurgy and all that stuff and the different carbon fiber or whatever, it's a super evolved process. So it's one of the highest tech art forms that as I'd say everybody has access to. Everybody has access in developed countries to a car of some sort. And when you think about how everything from the ECU to the headlight design to the multimedia interface, it's like everybody is pushing the limit of either value engineering or just straight engineering when you have companies like Bugatti or Porsche or whatever on one side. So to me, they represent a freedom of imagination, a freedom of experience, because you can just get in your car and just go drive it. And a lot of these things create an emotive response because they're dangerous when you go fast, they're thrilling. And I would just try to explain to someone, like, imagine a horse that ran 10 times faster than the horse that you rode today, and that, and the coolest shield or sword that you've ever seen, like somehow fused together. That's what it looks like. That's what a car is.
I love it.
Functional art.
CJ, thanks so much. We actually we were talking today. We're going to launch another show where we can just talk for longer to everyone. But thanks for joining us. I know you're busy.
Cool.
And let us know when you're you're allowed to come south and see us here in LA.
Maybe we could do a socially distanced barbecue party where we all sit there and eat and talk in the back of our cars.
So ready for it.
Love it.
Take care, mate. Thank you so much.
Guys.
All right, bye. And he doesn't think, he thinks about everything, every single.
I mean, talk about analytical and discipline's never been a problem. And he did say when you know what you want to do, it kind of isn't discipline. It's just that's what you do.
Yeah.
If you decided this is what you do.
Yeah.
Seems pretty simple, but
it's better than the percentage of most stick and ball athletes. What is it, like 60% file for bankruptcy within 6 years or something, 8 years? That's not happening to him. He is on it. The Michelin Guide has been the flagship, the beacon of light for the weary traveler for over 100 years now. showing the way and enlightening you to what is around the corner, where you can expect to see, to eat, to drink. And I mean, when you didn't have to feed your horse anymore, it suddenly became a requirement. And obviously the Michelin Guide has been a huge part of establishing restaurants around the world. And they launched the California Guide just a few months ago. We have one in Chicago, they have one in DC, and they have one in New York. And obviously chefs right now are been sitting back, and I'm sure having time to contemplate a little bit, because not too many of the fine restaurants near us are doing takeout. But I think that's about to change. Obviously, Gary Menez last week was so fantastic, a real insight, and this week's guest is equally as special.
From Aquavit, famous in New York, but also has an outpost in London, the executive chef, Emma Bengtsson, who is the only Swedish woman and only the second woman in history to have 2 Michelin stars at such a young age. And look at that.
And a Ferrari jacket.
Ferrari gear.
Right? I had to suit up a little bit, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you heard this, because it's literally hot off the press, hours old, that Sebastian Vettel just announced that he is not returning to Ferrari. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
So a sad day for the Tifosi.
Yeah.
But Formula One fan and a Ferrari fan.
Yes, of course. I've always loved cars. I never really had the opportunity to drive all the cars that I wanted to, though. But hopefully, maybe one day in the future, that will change.
It was funny when I communicated to Emma, hey, we'd love to talk to you about cars and things. She goes, I live in New York. we don't drive. So what would your dream car be right now? If we, imagine you're going to have restaurants everywhere. I promise you. What are you going to buy?
Wow. I think my childhood dream was I always grew up wanted to drive motorcycles. So I'm going to gear off a little bit on that. I always wanted to have a Kawasaki Ninja.
Yeah.
But that is a little bit reckless for me. So, I love cars. I'm not going to fool anyone and say that I know everything that goes on around cars. I'm more one of those people who have my favorite brands, and Ferrari is definitely one of them. And with their big store right across the street from Aquavit in New York. It's you walk by there every day and you just look at the cars, and hopefully one day can take one of them out.
So talk about, you told me your dad used to hot rod your monkey bike, right? Your dirt bike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously pushing yourself has been a common theme throughout your life. One thing that I don't think we can relate to, but I don't think I don't truly appreciate, is to become a top chef is probably like becoming a Formula One driver, isn't it? To make it through the ranking, through the kitchen, to show your skills.
The hours of learning the skills. I was thinking about it. It's so much like an apprenticeship, but you have to be obsessed.
It's definitely something that takes hours and hours, and it's hard to have a life outside of the kitchen. I grew up, you live there. You show up in the morning before everyone, you leave the last, just to be able to prove that you can take the next step upwards, and you live and you learn by everything you put into it. So if you're not 100% dedicated and love what you do, it's not that easy to reach the top. It's like every kitchen, every restaurant in the world have hundreds of employees, but they only have one chef in charge of it. And it's one of those things where you kind of have to be a little bit cunning, and you need to know what you're doing, and you have to have the strive for it. And that, I think that's always have been there to push myself to be the best in any kind of way that I can think of.
Now, the restaurant that you were, Aquavit, had a star, and you were working there. The executive chef left, and then you moved up and then earned a second one. Do you remember that day when it was awarded?
Yes, I did. I did think it was a prank call. And it took me a long time to figure out that it really was for real. And I even remember calling up my dad, and he was like, no, you got to check the number. I'm pretty sure it's a prank call. Are you sure it's for real?
Well, that would be a mean prank to play. So we just saw you in the kitchen there. How have you been sharpening your knives, so to speak, keeping yourself fresh? Because we've been off work for a while, and when you go back, your guests aren't going to accept the fact you've been off for a couple of weeks. It's like an athlete. You've got to hit the next Formula One race, the next IndyCar race, sports car race on it. How do you keep yourself fresh? I have no clue what a chef does to keep cook.
I mean, anything you can do is just try and cook at home and just read cookbooks and try your best at figuring out menus and what you want to do in the future. And I mean, it's been challenging, and it wasn't until a year ago, I even went on social media and started realizing all of that. And it's a whole different world now that I think maybe we need to connect with a little bit more and try and figure out how to do all of these Zoom calls and YouTube. And I mean, my nephew, who is 8, has to teach me things. Like I can't.
Oh yeah.
It's such a different world, but it's fun as well, and it's evolving, and it's nice to be able to try and cook from home and put it on a video.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have to let you go because I know it's a busy time, as well as you're get ready for takeout on Monday. You said you're going to start.
Yeah, so this is incredible times. I finally got to manage to go back to the restaurant. We're trying to open up with takeout deliveries, get all of that business rolling again. I didn't see that it was going to take this long. I thought at least we would be back and rolling after maybe 4 weeks. But looking at the situation right now, we kind of have to make the best of it and figure out a way to get our food out there and get people their Swedish classics and everything they're missing out there, including myself. So I can't wait to be up and rolling again.
Well, if you need it delivered fast, we can't help with the cooking, but we really are fast. We will deliver it quick. Emma, it's been a real pleasure, and hopefully when we come to Lime Rock, we'll come into New York. You should come up to Lime Rock and be our guest at the race there. And
I would love to.
We'll come down and see you. We get the better end of that deal.
Yes.
Take care.
Good deal. I'll go for that.
See you later, Emma. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
It's that theme, it's that passion, it's dedication, and I hope she heard some of the CJ interview because
the parallels,
it's almost identical.
Now, to update, we're heading into sort of our little sharing time and so forth. Gary, who was our guest last week, if you follow Gary Menez, if you follow him on Instagram, he's doing a Saturday bake, and he has a sourdough starter that is older than his children, 25 years old. And the items this week are 12. He's only baking 12 loaves. So there's 12 loaves, orange marmalade, with the oranges from a 50-year-old tree in his grandparents. He serves 10 people at his restaurant, and everything is really boutique. And so he's making this stuff for, if you get your order in quick enough, you can.
I know someone that went on and tried already. Just saying, straight away.
Order was in, and now I got to figure out how to do Venmo. I've never done Venmo before.
Ask an 8-year-old.
Yep.
As we told you a couple of weeks ago, Jason Jacobson, our partner and producer, and Betty, the Airstream behind, his wife, beautiful Justine, gave birth to Liam just 2 weeks ago, and Hagerty sent him the perfect Spit Crew onesie, which actually I have already inquired if they do them at 6'3". Oh, just because I think you'd look great in that. No, but that's what a great gift. Thank you so much on behalf of Jason, who can't say it to you right now. One of our favorite, and I'm speaking for the two of us, one of our favorite moments that really epitomized last year for us was going to the Audrain's Newport Concours and Motor Week. We were the host broadcasters. It was an inaugural year, and it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary for everyone who went, and we just had the best time, didn't we?
Oh, we were there multiple times, but we were there for 3 weeks in Newport, Rhode Island. And once we got the flavor of the place, we're like, after this event, everybody's going to say, how has this not been happening for 50 years? Because almost a lot of things that started in this country, one of the very first auto races, first tennis match, first
Polo.
Golf match, all those things
Sailing.
all happened in Newport, Rhode Island. So it was
amazing. It was really showed us why we did this show. And we actually, Jason's idea was we need to capture the essence. It's not about the Audrain Motor Week. Let's capture the essence of the love of cars, why people like us and millions of people, for whatever their own reason, connect with the automobile. And so we produced a documentary that will be coming out in partnership with Audrain. It'll be released sometime very soon. But this is a little trailer for it, and I hope you love it as much as we do.
As a lead-in to our final
guest. Lead-in to our final guest. Almost that picture of Donald Osborne.
Think about your first car for a second. Maybe you don't have a car. Maybe you never have. Think about someone else's car that you had a tie to. Why were you fond of it? What emotions did it bring for you? Go ahead and think.
I've always been attracted to cars, and I don't know why. It might be in the blood.
Our objective here is to be another great choice where to show your car.
Cars aren't just about the elegant sheet metal. It's about how they bring us together.
I'm 12 years old, and yeah, I love cars.
Unbelievable. This car has presence.
It was the last project me and my father did before he passed away. This is probably the best years I ever had with him. It chokes me up a little bit just to think about it.
But it becomes an extension of you.
This event is all about how cars connect with people emotionally.
This is a chance to reimagine what a car concours and motor week can be.
I've loved cars ever since I was a little kid. I can go around a highway turn and not let off the throttle doing like 70. It has a great noise to it. Pop the hood. First gear. Hit second. It's probably really annoying, but I love it.
It's completely opposite of what concours events are usually about.
Everybody else has got hair this color, but this whole section is all younger people.
This is super cool. It's an honor to be here.
Just so you know, your hand was really sweaty.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that again. Talk about nerves on the first go.
We may own them, but we're caretakers of the car for the next generation.
In the time, we will show these cars as art.
We all wanted this event. We just didn't know it.
People will say, well, I'm not a car person. You may not identify as a car enthusiast, but every one of us is a car person, has a car story.
Wow, goosebumps all around. What great memories.
And it's even more poignant having gone through, you don't know what you have till you lose it. And so everyone's doing a lot of reflection, but seeing that now, I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. I don't think the show would exist without that. So Donald is here. How are you, my friend?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much. Good to see you both.
Wow. Did you put those cars either side of you to make yourself younger?
No.
How are you?
I'm terrific. Thank you very much. Very tired. It's very funny to hear so many people talk about what they're doing to fill their time. And I'm busier than ever, thank God. Things here at the Audrain are going at a rapid pace as we do all we can to connect with our visitors and friends and supporters, since they can't come to the museum right now. with a lot of digital initiatives and getting out into more homes than we've ever gotten to before. It's very exciting.
Wow. Well, I've seen it all online, but for me, when I thought about the perfect guest to be on this show, I was thinking, who's a man or woman that connects with the style, the panache? Who is someone that loves cars, loves them regardless of their value? It's about what is it? What does the car mean? And truly, you are that guy, Donald, because you asked to attend events all over the world for that very reason. You are a car guy. How are you a car guy? What made you a car guy?
Well, it shouldn't have actually happened because, as you know, I was born in New York City, in Manhattan, and grew up in Manhattan and later in Queens. And my family didn't buy their first car till I was 12 years old. You don't need to have a car in Manhattan, as Chef Bengtsson mentioned. But the reality is that I connected with cars in a visceral way at a very young age. I have two older brothers, both of whom are car enthusiasts, but neither of them ended up the car nut that I am. But nonetheless, once cars were imprinted on me, they never left. And I am unbelievably blessed and incredibly grateful to be doing what I'm doing now. And as opposed to your last two guests, it's quite funny. Their paths were very linear. They knew exactly what they wanted to do from a very young age. I knew that I loved cars, but it took me until the middle of my life actually to finally start to work in cars.
Now, your statement in that documentary, I think, is so perfect because people say, "Oh, I'm a car guy." You broaden that definition because even if you don't identify, as you said, as a car person, and it's so true. Even if it's piling into a car that you don't even remember what it was to go to the concert or go to Coachella or go to Woodstock back in the day, and when you broaden that out, almost everybody has a really powerful story or relating to their parents or something. So well done to you. It's really summed that up well. What was it for you?
And Tommy, I'll actually correct you to say not almost everybody, everyone has a car story. Even someone who's never owned a car, people who've never seen a car in person, still have had a car imprinted on them in some way, in a book, in a film, in a TV show,
Good point.
on a cell phone, somewhere.
Yeah. So when I followed your Instagram last year, after I got to know you, it was a bit. You were like the Michelin Guide. You're at Philadelphia, and you were here, and you're in India. Truly, going to these automotive events around the world is a privilege, and it's an honor, I'm sure. But it's really the people that you meet that must have helped you consolidate, distill down what this all means.
It is to me all about the people, and it's a very interesting thing. As you know, I've made my living for more than almost 20 years as an appraiser and consultant on the acquisition and sale of classic cars. And of course, people see me on Jay Leno's Garage in my segment Assess and Caress with Donald Osborne, and here with my work with the Audrain. I'm surrounded by great cars, and I love great cars, but it's also about the stories of the cars. One of my favorite movies is The Yellow Rolls Royce, which is not a very good movie, but it's absolutely amazing because it tells the story of the life of this car and how it touches various people over the years. And that to me is what is so important. It's like antique furniture or great art. The first time I walked into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I almost cried because you feel the history. Every time I go to the Autodrome di Monza, you just walk in and you are in history, you're living history. And that's the feeling I have with cars. And it's great.
I think it's so interesting, the fact that yours happened without a car in your family. So it's a really interesting case study. What was it that so drew you to them at that time?
Well, it's hard to say. I was always a kid who loved to read. And so I also always joke about the fact that I became a real car nut because I had no friends as a kid. So I found myself often sitting in a corner reading by myself. And so I'd spend hours at the library reading books, reading my oldest brother subscribed to Road and Track and Competition Press and Auto Week. And so I would devour these things cover to cover. And of course, reading all these great names that I had no idea how to pronounce because I was shocked when I found out as a teenager that Olivier Jean de Bien's name was pronounced that way because I had no idea. But it was something that also led me, frankly, to so many of my other interests. Reading about these European cars and seeing them for the first time at the New York Auto Show in 1964 opened up a whole new world for me. I became interested in language and culture and travel, although I didn't travel till I was in college, because of cars. I wanted to know where these countries were and what they were like and who were these people that made these cars, because I thought they were amazing.
And of course, as I asked you, you sent me a couple of photographs. You couldn't just define it to one car that was that car. You have two cars. Couldn't be more different. Tell us about that car or those cars.
Well, as I said, the first car show that I went to was the New York International Automobile Show at the Coliseum in Manhattan. And my brothers, who, as I said, were car enthusiasts, were absolutely wild about the new GTO. And it was like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. I was transformed by the Maserati Quattroporte Series 1 and the Citroën DS. I thought these were absolutely amazing. The Maserati, because it looked like sort of a Rambler sedan, but it went 165 miles per hour. Oh my God, how was that possible? And the smell of the leather interior was something I still remember to this day. And the fact that they let this young kid lean far enough in to actually smell the interior is also something that you probably couldn't do today.
No.
I remember immediately saying, I need to have a brochure. They didn't have any brochures on the stand. So I wrote to the Momo Corporation that was importing Maseratis. And I said, hello, my name is Donald Osborne, and I'm very interested in your new four-door car. Could you please send me some information on it? And they mailed Mr. Osborne this wonderful Maserati Quattroporte brochure. I'm sure they had no idea he was 8 years old.
That's the power of mailing lists. And the other one, well, you love your other European cars.
Well, the Citroën DS was also a car that really ignited my love of things French. And it's a very funny thing because, again, loving history as I did even as a kid, and these sort of milestones, turning points in history, when I first read the story of the DS, I thought, this is a time machine moment. And I've had some of these in my life where I thought, if they invented a time machine, there are certain points in history I'd love to go back to. One of them is the 1955 Paris Auto Show, and watch the crowds as they saw the Citroën DS for the first time. It must have literally appeared like a spaceship.
And when they turned it on and the hydraulics will bring it up, and they must have been blown away.
Just the shape alone.
Just the shape alone. Yeah, we were talking about this last week. Cars have so obviously shaped society, culture, and the way we act, and obviously geographically they change depending on, the cars in Japan are very different from the ones you need here in America. So there's those sort of fundamentals. But also, how do you look at it the other way around? What came first, chicken or the egg? Society and culture shaping cars, or have cars shaped culture, in your opinion?
I think that they are interchangeable and indistinguishable. I'm sitting here between these two cars quite on purpose. This 1925 Ford Model T Tourer and this 1937 Bentley 4¼ liter Carlton Drophead. These cars are separated by 12 years, but they are lands apart.
Wow.
They're built for two very different circumstances, two very different customers, and two very different cultures. The Bentley is something that certainly 12 years of development you wouldn't imagine, as CJ mentioned earlier about the pace of development in cars. And in fact, I'll make another plug for the Audrain. We had a virtual opening on Friday, May 1st of our new exhibition that we're running now, Shining Bright, Advances in Automotive Lighting. And we take the visitor on a journey from the 1901 Winton with its kerosene headlights to a 2018 McLaren and a 2020 Ducati Panigale V4R. So, I mean, it's absolutely astonishing to see how both necessity became the mother of invention and invention became the mother of necessity. It's quite amazing to see, and I love it.
Hey, Donald, something you said about, you loved cars for your whole life, but it wasn't your business until 20 years ago. So give some advice to these people that are stuck in a job that they hate, but, how did that work out for you? And what advice could you give to someone that as a way to sort of nibble at turning your love into a avocation?
Tommy, I love that you asked that question because I frankly, and being slightly judgmental, sorry, I frankly am saddened by people who do something that they absolutely hate. The alarm goes off in the morning and say, oh my God, I've got to do that thing again. We are all capable of doing so many things if we have the passion for it, if we have of course, the aptitude, but certainly the application. I loved cars as a boy. I trained as an artist in high school and intended to go to school for industrial design to become a car designer. While I was in high school, I discovered singing, and instead of going to art school, I ended up going to school for music and becoming an opera singer. After I graduated from college, I got a job in retailing to support myself while I pursued my singing career. Pursued my singing career, sang as a soloist of the Metropolitan Opera, decided I didn't like it, went back into retailing, but I always was involved in cars. I started writing for Sports Car Market magazine in 1996. I contributed my first article, and it just built from there. As I was working in other fields, I always stayed connected with cars. I always let the passion carry me somewhere. And so in 2004, I just decided, you know, I've loved this so much. And actually, speaking of your great sponsor, Hagerty, I'd done a lot of work with Hagerty and known McKeel Hagerty for years and known the company for a very long time. And one of my best friends, Dave Kinney, who is the person who started the Cars That Matter price guide, which became the Hagerty price guide and who helped Hagerty create their valuations tool section, said to me, Donald, you love cars, you're very analytical, you're very intuitive, and you're very detail-oriented. Have you ever thought about becoming an appraiser? I thought, this is it. This is where they come together. And now, in my current job as CEO of the Audrain, everything that I've done, the 5 completely different careers that I've had in television production, corporate image and branding, being on the boards of nonprofits, it all comes together here doing this. And I couldn't be happier. We just have to open our minds to the possibilities that are there.
I mean, that's a great answer. But I'm also going to say, in your new job with the title of CEO, before that, it was sort of leading the team with Nick and Jay on creating that event last year that brought together all the best bits of all the elements that you love about car events around the world. We for sure are going to miss being there in October. I have no doubt that when we come back in 2021, it'll be even bigger. But how do you describe why that event takes place? Because you actually say something really great. The world needed another car event, like basically a hole in a head, is what you described it. But it was a different vibe to it, which we fell in love with. But how do you describe it? What made it so different?
It's about this place. It's Newport, Rhode Island, is what convinced me to become involved here and convinced me to take this job and move here. Yeah. Newport is a place, as Tommy said at the beginning, the history of Newport is astonishing. This town was founded in the 17th century and has great 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, and now 21st century history. You live in history in Newport. It's not sort of a pretend town with fake storefronts and people dressing up in costume. You live history every moment, walking down the streets, driving down the streets, going to the beach, seeing these amazing historic buildings, including the one that I'm sitting in right now. And so it has a unique atmosphere that literally cannot be duplicated anywhere else in the world. And the fact that the theme of the Audrain, Concours, and Motor Week is the celebration of history, luxury, and sport. And you just feel that. I know you guys felt that when you were here. Yeah. And it's so wonderful, you know, watching the opening of your show with all that spectacular footage shot here in Newport. It just, you feel the energy of the place, you feel the style of the place, you feel the spirit of the place, and it's really quite remarkable and as I said, quite unmatched anywhere else.
That's the Audrain building, and this was the parade that went down the street. The tour ended, they closed off this street, and that's the building that Donald's sitting in right now.
Well, we can't wait. We're working very hard.
The most interesting man. I mean, what a conversation.
We
I mean,
talk,
what a career,
hours.
What a life, what a eloquent speaker.
We're working very hard right now on getting this documentary out into the public domain. It's time that it should be seen. But at the same time, you are the guy to ask this about, because we get asked it, and we can only really comment from maybe the performance end. What is our future? What will what will us? We're going to live to 130, Donald, as you know, between us. Not between us, each of us. What in 2050? What are they going to be saying about? What are we going to be driving? What's it going to look like? What is our future?
Well, it's a very interesting thing. I cannot tell you. I can tell you that it's going to be something which is going to be interesting, because just as radio, people predicted the end of radio at least 4 times. Radio is not what it was in the 1930s, not what it was in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, but radio still exists. Cars will always, personal transportation devices will always exist, and even though we may not use them the way we use them today, they will still be providing joy and emotional satisfaction for people. I'm convinced of that because cars today are being appreciated as art, and we appreciate art going back to prehistoric times, pre-Columbian times, the Renaissance, through the modern age to contemporary times. So there's no reason on earth why the car, the greatest, arguably the greatest and most moving and meaningful cultural artifact of the 20th century, should not be celebrated for another century.
How do you beat that? You can never out-talk the Donald. There we got the laugh. I was just thinking, how do we get the laugh in? Oh, Donald, we miss you. We can't wait till we see you. I know you're not back in Palm Springs much at the moment, but I can't wait till we can all travel and get together again. Please say hello to everyone there at the Audrain. You guys are part of our life right now, so take care, and thank you for being on The Love of Cars.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, bye. Oh, I got the laugh in. I'm so pleased we got the laugh in. I want it as my ringtone, but I could not record it without him noticing.
What a remarkable, interesting guy. And you just get sucked into the stories, the way quite the orator.
So it's really, he epitomizes why we, the people that love this beautiful world of ours. So we, as Tommy kicked off at the beginning of the show, a lot of interest in people coming on the show. We actually have some really fun guests over the next 5 or 6 weeks. I'm so excited. Next week we have, who do we have next week, Jason? I need to bring that out. I didn't put it on my list. Well, actually, we were going to have Dario Franchitti on, but he's actually just pushed it. It's his birthday next week. And
it'll be 11 p.m.
And 11
no,
p.m.
it'll be 1 a.m.
1 a.m. And he said he's probably not going to be in the best state to come on the show, so he's going to push it to the next week. But John Oates of Hall & Oates fame is going to be joining us. And I tell you, John connects on so many levels. He's a true car guy, but at the same time, he has a Rod Emery outlaw, which makes him okay in my book. And, of course, is quite literally one of the most famous musicians in the world. So he'll be on, and we also are being joined by another Michelin star chef who I'll tell you about on social media this week. Thanks for watching. I've had fun. Have you had fun?
I've had a remarkable time. It's like I said, it's just like sitting around, and we could literally do this show every night and not run out of people. So
I know. We could talk to them all for about an hour and a half, couldn't we? Well, thank you for joining. Follow along on social media. Tomorrow we will be doing a watch party over at Talk Show Live when we will replay this show, currently broadcasting on Hagerty's live stream. We will rebroadcast it on our Facebook channel, and Tommy and I will be sitting there chatting with you. It's getting more popular every week. Thanks for joining, and the love of cars will always be around us.